Welcome back to our channel. I'm your host, Daniel Ronberg, and today is the video we're going to cover the fourth of the 4 questions in our Countdown to Retirement series. Now, this series was designed to say that if you think you're ready to retire, you'll be able to answer and address these 4 distinct questions. And the first question was, do I have enough money to retire? The second question is, have I had enough work? The third question is, do I know what I'll do when I retire? And today we're going to cover the fourth question. What you'll notice is only the first question had to do with finances. So often people have this vision of retirement like it's all about the finances. And they think about things like, have I saved enough? Have I put enough money into my 401k? Have I maximized my pension options and my social security choices? Is my pension even high enough? And that's all very important, and it's a major focus in the work we do with our clients. But oftentimes, people don't anticipate the softer side of retirement, the expectations or the things they're thinking they'll get out of retirement. Sometimes they underestimate the impact it's going to have on your spouse. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the fourth question, which is my spouse ready for me to retire? What I'm about to share in this video to some of you may come as a shock, and to others who are single and not married, it won't matter. Another study that's shocking that was done by the Institute of Economic Affairs showed that retirement can increase the risk of clinical depression by as much as 40%. Now, that's not fun to talk about, but this is just the reality of retirement. Seeing these pitfalls up front can help you avoid them. And that's why today's question is so important. Is your spouse ready for you to be done working? Because again, you could have all the money in the world, but still lack an enjoyable retirement. And if you don't have a fulfilling retirement, then I think you might have missed the whole point of retirement. So in today's video, as we take a deeper look at is your spouse ready for you to retire, we're going to look at the 5 critical areas that cause conflicts between you and your spouse. And understanding how some things may change when you retire is a very important first step when asking the question, is your spouse ready for you to retire? So let's get started. The first one comes down to misaligned expectations. Remember from the study earlier, 1 in 3 spouses have misaligned expectations as to what retirement's going to look like for them. Maybe one spouse stays home right now and is already retired, and they're thinking that the retiring spouse is going to have a whole bunch of time on their hands. And with that extra time on their hands, they're going to help out with more projects around the house. They're going to start getting to some things that they may have not been getting to or maybe been putting off for the last few years. And while that may be the case, the other spouse may be thinking, hey, I have all this free time to go now play golf or go hiking. Maybe they're going to have more time to be able to spend with their friends. And that misaligned expectation causes conflict in the relationship. Or maybe one spouse envisions a retirement where you retire and now you're together all the time. You have 24 hours in a day, and that might be one spouse's expectation. But the other spouse might be thinking, well, now that I have all this free time, there's much more time to spend with my friends and other family. It's time for pursuing hobbies that I haven't been able to pursue for a long time. So misaligned expectations can cause conflict if not addressed ahead of time. So misaligned expectations is one of those things that you need to get in order if you want to reach alignment. In order for you to feel like you're ready for retirement, and not just for you to be ready, but to make sure your spouse is ready for you to retire as well. The second area of conflict is bringing the workplace home. By the time you're done working, chances are you've probably moved up at the company you work for. You might have a higher level position. For example, you might be a manager, or you might own the company. And when you have that, you're used to being in charge. You're used to calling the shots. And you're used to people doing things the way you want them to do. Well, that doesn't just go away. So if you retire, your spouse becomes the other end of that. They're the ones you're now bossing around. Maybe you're used to managing a team really well, but when you bring that workplace home, that's when the conflict settles in. You no longer have that outlet in the workplace to be able to manage and direct. And so if it's not your spouse, it's the people at home that you're closest with that you begin managing and directing. And this can show up in the form of organizing the house, how time should be spent, or even what groceries are purchased or not. It can be very big things, or it can be little things. And so wanting to maintain that leadership role, while it can be good in some areas, it can really be hard on the relationship for your spouse and for the others around you. And while maintaining that sense of control or leadership can be good in other ways, it can be very harmful for your relationship with your spouse or your other loved ones. And this is why it's so important to forecast these expectations now on what life's going to look like when you no longer have that managerial role and how you're going to show up for the people around you that you care about the most. The third thing is money. Now in part 1, hopefully you haven't listened to part 1 yet. If you have, pause the video and go back and listen to the very first part of this series, which is, do I have enough money to retire? Hopefully you've addressed this by now. But what I do see a lot of spouses get in conflict with is how much money will be spent in retirement. This is big. In fact, in my best-selling book, Buy Back Your Life, I discuss this in detail about how I've witnessed spouses arguing over money being spent in retirement time and time again. Maybe one spouse says, we're retired. It's time to start traveling the world and spending money extravagantly, doing the things that we actually said we wanted to do. Whereas the other spouse might be a little more cautious, saying, yeah, we're retired, but now we're on a fixed income, living off of our savings. We need to make sure it lasts. And they might be a little tighter with the money. They might want to be a little bit more conservative on how that money's managed. So this is something that's very important to set your expectations on and get on the same page ahead of time. How are you going to manage these new finances together as a couple? And how are you going to determine what things to say yes to and what to say no to in retirement? And again, this comes down to understanding how much do you have and how much can you safely generate from Social Security, pensions, annuities, and your other savings. But it also comes down to your comfort level. Even if you can spend it, and I've seen a lot of spouses go through this, you just don't want to. They're not comfortable spending something that took their whole lifetime to build and save. And there's a difference. One spouse is generally more of the spender in the relationship, while the other spouse tends to be more of a saver. So understanding those different dynamics is going to be important in terms of depending how you're going to spend money in retirement. Now, the fourth area I see people struggle with when it comes to retirement is sadly depression. Now, I mentioned that study earlier that it's sad, but the truth is retirement can increase your chances of clinical depression by as much as 40%. Now, what happens if your work provides a lot of purpose in your life? Work provides a place for you to have an outlet. Whatever your skill set is, whatever your gift is, you can still apply it in retirement. There's purpose and meaning in it. And when it gets taken away, and it's not replaced by something else that provides that fulfillment, that purpose that's equally valuable to you, a lot of people will go into a depression. They've gone their whole lives having something to deal with, and then that something gets taken away. And oftentimes by choice, they choose to retire from the place they're working. And that doesn't only just affect you. Sometimes your spouse can get depressed about you not working any longer. They're the ones that are also having to deal with it. And maybe both of you are dealing with it. And that's obviously a sign that there's something much deeper there. So understanding this and knowing the things you're going to replace it with can make a huge difference. And this goes back to our last episode where we covered the question number 3, do you know what you're going to do when you retire? So be sure to go back and watch that if you haven't already. Do something that's going to be meaningful and give you purpose, because I see way too many people that get depressed and they're missing, trying to fill that void that they have. They once had something they no longer have in their lives. Another thing that can lead to depression is your actual health. I mean, you might be spending years romanticizing about what you're going to do in retirement and the trips you're going to take and the lifestyle you're going to have. Maybe it's about the activities you're going to get involved with. But by the time you actually retire, maybe you or your spouse just don't have the same health to be able to do those things. And this can be especially tough when you spend a lot of time daydreaming about the vision of the retirement you'd like to have, and then not to be able to do it because of health issues. You just don't have the same energy or bandwidth you thought you'd have at that time. That can really be a struggle, and it can put strain on your relationship, especially if it's because of your spouse's health, and if that leads to something you're no longer able to do as a result of it. So getting out in front of this and setting those clear expectations can be very, very important. The final and fifth pitfall that I see come between spouses is that disenchantment of, again, romanticizing what retirement's going to look like. You romanticize about how great life's going to be when you finally get free of your 9 to 5. And that can be fun to a degree. Maybe you spend the first couple months or the first couple years traveling and doing the things you want to do. But you're going to get to a point where that wears off. The honeymoon phase will end. And you become very disenchanted when you realize you've built new long days with not enough things to fill them. So I don't want to say this in a scary way, because everyone's experience is different. But I do want to know what things you're going to be able to do when you retire, like spend time with your family or starting up new hobbies or volunteering. Maybe it's a part-time or even another full-time career. But that's why it's so important to talk about what we covered in our last episode. Do you know what you're going to do when you retire? It's so important because you need something to fill your time with. So if you're not going to be fulfilled, you're probably not going to have the experience that you're looking for. And then when you retire, you're going to have nothing to do all day. And this is why disenchantment can end up impacting both spouses. And that can cause some real issues there. So understanding what you're going to do really goes a long way in terms of you moving towards a fulfilling retirement and keeping that relationship that you got there with. So those are the 5 areas that I typically see people struggle with when we ask the question, is your spouse ready for you to retire? Your spouse may not be ready for you to retire because of misaligned expectations. Or maybe number 2, you're bringing the workplace home like we talked about. Or number 3, money. Are you on the same page when it comes down to how your spouse is planning on spending the money? Number 4, depression. Making sure you have something fulfilling to do. And so does it come back to you and ultimately end up impacting you or your spouse? And number 5, the disenchantment. Making sure that you set a schedule and a calendar and fill it with things that are meaningful to you. Because it means you might be home all day, and that's a big one in many cases. But then you think, is your spouse ready to have you home with them all day? And that's its own specific expectation that doesn't even really fall into one of these exactly. So really go through all of them. Talk about them with your spouse. So understand if you do retire and do almost like a little dress rehearsal. What is that really going to look like for you guys? What do you want out of that season? What is a day really going to come down and feel like to you? What is a day going to look like to make you feel like you really have an amazing retirement? And how does that fit for both spouses? So those are the 5 common areas that I see spouses have conflict or issues with. And it comes down to one spouse retiring and the other not being ready to retire because they're not fully ready for them to do so because they haven't really addressed all of these key areas. So what we'll do next is understand some of these things that you can do to do now ahead of time so you can create the best scenario, the best possible outcome for you when you actually do this, and how you can actually fix some of this stuff. Well, number 1 is to share your vision, an understanding of what does retirement really look like for each one of you. Remember, 1 in 3 couples have misaligned expectations when it comes to retirement, and they don't even know it. They just have expectations of whatever they think retirement's going to look like. Maybe their spouse thinks the same way, or maybe when they say travel, they think about living in different places for 3 to 4 months out of the year. And maybe they think they're going to continue to do that. Maybe they'll spend a month in Europe or a month in Asia. And so we're going to travel in retirement can actually look very different for 2 spouses. So fully share your vision. The clearer, the better, so that you and your spouse can get on the same page. Number 2 is set appropriate expectations. Make sure you both understand what will retirement look like for each of you. How much time do you want to spend together? Activities that you're both excited to be able to pursue, either together or separately when you're no longer at the workplace. What are other expectations you might have when it comes to spending time with family or friends? All of these are very, very good things to be sharing ahead of time. This way you have the same expectations going into retirement. And maybe you're already there. And if you are, great job. A lot of people are. They have similar visions and expectations when it comes to what retirement's going to look like. But it never hurts to go through the exercise to make sure that you're on the same page before you start. Number 3 is watch the last 2 episodes in this series, just in terms of really understanding, have you had enough work? Sometimes people retire and then turn around and immediately miss the workplace. So that's episode 2. Now, episode 3 is getting clarity on what you're really going to spend your time doing in retirement. And these are activities that generate fulfillment and purpose. They generate fun too. And so making sure you have a clear understanding of what they're going to look like can be essential for enjoying your retirement. So if you haven't done so already, go back and listen to episodes 2 and 3 in the series. So that'll give you some things to think about and some good feedback when it comes to what are you going to be doing when you're all done with work. And the 4th is talk to an objective third party. And for some people, this looks different. This could be a counselor or a friend who's already retired. Understanding what pitfalls have they run into? What have they really enjoyed so far? What's been the downside that they didn't really prepare for? Or even a financial advisor or financial planner that's guided people successfully through retirement and understands what you should be looking out for and what you should avoid. Or maybe talk to a financial professional that's helped guide people through retirement and giving you ideas of what to look out for and what you can be excited to anticipate. You can talk to them from a financial standpoint. So many people spend all their time talking about retirement in just terms of, can I afford it? Are they positioned to be able to do what they want to do? And that's great, but it's not the only step. The 3 things we talked about after that of, have you had enough work? Do you know what you're going to do once you retire? And is your spouse ready for you to retire? These are the things that people just don't spend enough time thinking about. So if you can listen to those 3 episodes and answer those 3 questions with a resounding yes, you should feel confident. And not just confident, you should feel excited about your retirement because it can be an amazing season for you. But if you've listened to these and said, you know what? No, I'm not financially ready. No, I haven't had enough work. No, I don't know what I'll do. Or no, I don't know if my spouse and I are on the same page. If you answer no to any of these, just do some of the action steps we talked about in each episode. Have the conversation yourself. Have the conversations with your spouse. Reach out to people that can help, because if you can't fully and confidently answer yes to each of those questions, it's possible that you could run into some of those pitfalls in retirement. So that's that. That concludes our series on the countdown to retirement. So if you have any specific questions you'd like the answer to, or anything you'd like to know when it comes to retirement, well, then this show is all for you. I want to make sure this show is as valuable as it possibly can be for you. And so that's our Countdown to Retirement series. And we'll see you next time for future episodes. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video and you want more information about retirement, be sure to check out my new book, Buy Back Your Life, How to Stop Worrying About Money and Start Living in Retirement. If you want a copy of this book absolutely for free, call my office with this phone number below. Talk to the girls at the front desk. You don't have to provide any information. We just need your name and address, and they'll mail you out your copy today.